Hey everyone, welcome back. It's another episode of the Spartan Shadows podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Chris. I'm joined with one of my co-hosts, Emmett, and we're here to give you our weekly rundown, weekly episode, talk a little bit of the Michigan game, if you want to call it that, Michigan experience for MSU football, preview Minnesota's game on Saturday for the Spartans in Minneapolis, St. Paul, and then we got basketball had its exhibition against UCONN. Hockey wrapped up a series last weekend, and then they're off this weekend, so kind of a lower content week, but we'll still catch up on all the things that we've missed talking about and get you ready for Saturday's game. So with that being said, Emmett, thanks for joining me. How you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. We are recording this Thursday night. In a day or so, I'm going to be flying out to Minnesota to be live coverage for the game. Very excited for that. Kind of a bittersweet experience because my grandpa passed earlier this year and was a huge Minnesota fan. Had this game circled, underlined, starred, whatever you want to call it, on the calendar to get to see him again, and obviously didn't come to fruition. But no, it's going to be a great experience to be back out in Minnesota. Honestly, of all the Big Ten towns and areas outside of Ann Arbor and East Lansing, Minneapolis, St. Paul is the one that I know most and honestly closest to home. So it's going to be a nice experience to be out there again.
Yeah, absolutely. Zach couldn't be with us again this week. Just another crazy week of trying to schedule. So he will be joining us again, hopefully for next week's episode when we're recapping all this. I guess let's get into it. Michigan game last week. Unfortunate outcome for the Spartans, a 31-20 final score. Wolverines keeping Paul Bunyan in Ann Arbor for one more year, hopefully just one more year. To say this game was frustrating, I guess would be probably putting it mildly. I kind of don't know where to start with that other than, the Spartan defense was able by and large to keep Bryce Underwood in check. They kept the Michigan run game in check for the most part. Some missed plays led to some missed tackling led to some big plays, but overall, I thought the defensive efforts was better than it had been in weeks. Joe Rossi was on the sidelines which was a change of pace, and I thought he brought some much needed energy to a team that really wasn't displaying much energy. And so kudos to Joe Rossi for doing everything in his power to try to get the boys rolling. Other than that, it was just a lot of unfortunate miscues, penalties, undisciplined play from the Spartans that really never allowed them to turn the tide. They were in it for most of the game. You felt like you were one or two big plays away from maybe flipping the game up on its end. Just could never get it. I know everybody's going to want to talk about the fumble strip sack that MSU would have recovered that coming out of the second half when we were only down 3. Could have completely shifted the game, but it was ruled not a turnover because we were ruled to be defensively offside, even though that wasn't the case. But bad call nonetheless. The Spartans really didn't even make plays after that to give. I wanted a play or two to be made to make it within a fighting distance to where you could claim that was the tide changer, but it just never seemed to come to fruition. Mekhi Frazier did eclipse 100 yards rushing. Nick Marsh had 6 catches for 75 yards for the Spartan offense. Yeah, that's kind of the highlights, I guess. We'll let Emmett break it down a little bit more as he was there. I was just really frustrated. I can't quite describe it, I guess, the best. It was just something for this game being such a big rivalry and the kind of the rhetoric you heard all week from the staff and players. They're trying to get up for the game and trying to come out firing in a game that could really have changed their season had they come up and won it. There was just not a lot of emotion and kind of flat play, to be honest with you. And I thought that was really frustrating as a fan to see. Just it felt like an egg was laid, I guess, for lack of a better term. So I'll let Emmett get into his breakdown. Emmett, you want to elaborate on any of that or get into anything else?
I'll start by agreeing with you. It was very, I would almost say, an unemotional game. Mm-hmm. It was, you did not see them playing with the same passion that you've seen previous Michigan State rivalries have. It was, in a way, kind of a sad expectation I had following the weekly press conferences where it felt like Nick Marsh was ready to go, had this game circled, underlined. He was ready for this game. But then everyone else was just like, yeah, it's a game. Sure, yeah, we prepare for it different. Yeah, we know the importance of the rivalry. But saying it and doing it, and you did not get that off the body language. You didn't really get any of that. You didn't have the same passion and energy that we even had when we interviewed Byron Bulla about his experience in the Michigan State rivalry. we didn't have that same fire and passion when we were interviewing players for media availability, and it showed on the field. You just saw a flat, outside of the Mekhi Frazier 49-yard run in the first half. That drive went 10 plays for 73 yards. MSU had 5 or 6 other drives that had, including penalty yardage, a net of 0 for that first half of offense.
It might have
So
even
that's
been
why
6
it's
or
hard for me to
7.
believe. So honestly, the problem with that is that's why you can't convince me that the Malcolm Bell offside that wasn't an offside would have flipped the game. It's hard to convince me that when you look at an offense that had, I want to say, 5 3-and-outs.
Yeah.
4 of which came in the first half, and I believe 3 of those 4 drives were -7 or worse yards. You can't convince me that they would have magically flipped the script at halftime and found a way to score. I'll give props to Brian Lindgren for having an offense that scored more than their first half production, but they still got outscored by the Wolverines in the second half. It was still 21-13?
Yeah.
And it was, the best way to describe it is an unmitigated failure at all levels. Offensive line play, there were multiple times where the tackles instantly folded. Stanton Ramil tried to gut it out, played about 20 snaps, could not play at the level he was happy with, proud of, and he gave way to Rustin Young at tackle and AJ Dennis for 1 snap after, I believe, Moore or someone's helmet popped off. Dennis proceeded to go in and get an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty, which Matt Seibert, friend of the podcast, vehemently disagrees with and said that he was pulled into the pile. I don't see it, and I've watched this replay at least 100 times. I think I've watched this replay more than the offsides replay at this point, both of which I've probably seen 50 times this week alone. But the offensive line play, back to that, was just not great. You had Matt Golban doing great at center, all Big Ten level. Guard play wasn't great. Rakeem Johnson came in for 18 snaps, had a pass block grade of 11.1, which the only player really competing in that 11.1 range, for perspective on how bad the pass blocking would be, was Brandon Tolis at the start of the year when he was pass blocking at halfback. So that is, safe to say, not a good grade. As much as often criticized tackle Ashton Lepo before his injury, was Lepo's worst grade within the 20s. So that was awful play for offensive line for the pass block. The run game, yeah, sure, Mekhi Frazier got 110 rush yards, 109 rush yards, but I want to say 74 of them came between 2 plays.
Yeah.
And then he had, 16 carries for 40 yards? So 2.5 per carry or so? So you have that. It's just not, it's not easy for me to say that, yeah, a couple things different. Aiden Childs went back to the Aiden Childs we saw against UCLA. And it's become growingly louder that Alessio Milivojevic might need to get more snaps. Nick Marsh was able to continue his usual production, and honestly, he probably should have gone over 100 yards, but had multiple PIs that got missed, multiple holdings that got missed, whatever you want to call it. Once again, that does not change this game, in my opinion, because quite a few of them were first half penalties, and the first half offense was disgusting. Defensively, I will give flowers. You only allowed 86 pass yards to Bryce Underwood. Had him scrambling. Jalen Thompson felt like he had 18 pressures by himself. I know the defense forced 15 pressures. Yeah, I know the defense forced 15 pressures by themselves, and I'm pretty sure Jalen Thompson was 13 of them, it felt like. But that was really, it got Underwood to the point where he was uncomfortable enough on his, I believe he was talking to the Michigan beat writers this week and said on his he had 16, 17 RPOs and chose to hand it off on all but 1.
Yeah.
So that just really speaks to the Michigan State pass rush was existent and got him uncomfortable. It was at least at a feasible level. I know they only brought him down once by Ruquan Buckley, but they got him uncomfortable. That was about the only thing I can give flowers for this game. Because then you look at the run defense. I know Chris disagrees with me a little here, and that's okay. I just don't see it when you allow your rivalry program to rush for 276 yards.
Yeah.
You can't say you stop the run when you have 200-yard rushers and allow, 50 yards from the quarterback? It is very hard to find much to be positive about. And I had that in my article that went to Gopher Hole previewing Michigan State. It's hard to be positive about this team right now, which really sucks. I know I'm mostly an optimistic person, and last week I was negative. This week, yeah, I'm a little more negative because this was a team this Michigan team I won't say they're like bad. I'm just going to say if they get to the college football playoffs, for example, they'll be laughed out of it. I think this is a good Michigan team and probably can win 8-9 games this year, but they're not a college football playoff team. They're a little worse than last year's team, and last year honestly, they were very beatable. So it's frustrating.
Yeah.
And then coaching, don't even get me started. There were coaching issues everywhere. The Omari Kelly challenge flag was going to be something that I would talk about. Honestly, looking at the replay, good call by Smith to keep the red flag in his pocket. I don't see that as a catch in further review and looking at another angle. I don't see that as a catch. But then you have 4th and 3 going for it instead of kicking a field goal to make it a one-score possession. You have going for 2 after the second touchdown of the game for MSU, chasing points, and it seemed like even immediately post-game, Jonathan Smith talked himself in circles. And that's frustrating to me because it seemed like he's trying to justify to himself and to the media. And I don't see why you go for 2 when you're down. I believe at that point the situation was you're down 9, extra point makes it 8, or it was down 10 or whatever. Regardless. Oh wait, it was down 11, extra point makes it down 10, going for 2 makes it down 9. There's no reason to do that.
And it happened twice.
Then you have going for it on 4th down, 4th and inches. Yes, you go for it. But you can't gain inches, which goes back to the guard play. You can't gain inches on a quarterback sneak with, Aiden Childs at 6'4", 6'3", 225?
Mm-hmm.
You can't gain that. I know that they put up 20 points, which they held a Big Ten offense to 31 points or less for the first time all year. Yay, flowers for that, I guess. But yeah, that's it. Coming against your biggest rival, that's just a failure on all proportions. Almost every play besides every group besides really Nick Marsh and Matt Golban, I'm basically giving an F.
Yeah. Well, and the frustrating part about it more so than anything is you mentioned it, and I had said it before too. These past 2 seasons, Michigan's been more beatable than they have in probably 4 years. I mean, it's years where they're down a little bit. The way they've been recruiting, they may not stay down for very long. I mean, you expect Bryce Underwood to start taking steps, and they're landing high-profile talent year after year. So you want to capitalize when they're down. And I mean, this game aside, you don't want to ever lose it ever. And I just felt like opportunities were squandered the past 2 seasons. It didn't feel like necessarily we got beat either game badly. We should have probably won both games with the effort Michigan put out.
And at this point, we've beat ourselves twice.
Yep.
And it just feels like Michigan's going to get better with Underwood. Underwood's a good quarterback. He's not the quarterback that passed for 86 yards. He's going to get better.
Yeah. So it's frustrating to watch. And I know a lot of the frustration with the fan base lies with the coaching staff, and rightfully so.
You can't blame them.
Nope, you can't blame them. We're generally more positive than anything, and we're kind of all in the same boat. It's frustrating to watch, and like I said, I do give Joe Rossi some flowers for actually looking. I mean,
yeah, Rossi actually looking like he cared I shouldn't be genuinely surprised that a coach is showing emotion on the sideline. But here we are. This was game number 22, 20 for the Jonathan Smith era. And I've become so used to the ho-hum, aw shucks, everything's fine rhetoric that a coach showing emotion on the sideline actually had me surprised.
Yeah.
A coach being fired up for a good play, and that energy was contagious because we talked about this early in the week with a friend of a couple weeks ago for the homecoming game, a friend of the program, Matt Seibert. He tweeted it out that a big play would be made by the defense, like they'll break up a pass or whatever, and no one's going to celebrate with him.
Yeah.
Rossi's going there and getting fired up when his guys are making a good play, and that energy builds, and you see them getting pressures on the quarterback, forcing incomplete passes. Sometimes they'll get a little handsy, and get the PI call. Quite a few of them were good PI calls. You can call them ticky-tacky. Quite a few were good PI calls against the Wolverines. And I know Malcolm Bell in particular had a little bit of a struggle game, but overall, Rossi would go to bat for his players. He would go and defend them and yell at the ref, and that's something you don't see out of Smith. And the calm and cool presence, it works when you're winning, but when you're 3-5, it just seems like you're disinterested.
Yep. And like I was saying, credit to Joe Rossi for, sorry for the language, but actually acting like he gives a shit. So it's just,
True.
it's frustrating. And I know some of the players, I'm not trying to say they haven't looked like they've cared or they haven't brought some emotion, but it's just the overall rhetoric has just been flat and it's frustrating. So does it get changed? I don't necessarily think so, but new week, we'll see what Minnesota brings, and we can start our preview into that. There's really not much more to say about Michigan. It's frustrating. It's frustrating to see them win. It's frustrating to see the narratives that come from them winning, and I'm sick of it, and hopefully it changes.
I will stick by my take, though, that if you're going to go and blame the officiating for this game, in what was basically an 18-point loss, that, in my opinion, is a lazy narrative. You can argue it changes the momentum all you want, but the first half offense was bad enough. I don't know if I can be convinced. You can't convince me that MSU would have genuinely made an impact.
Yep, absolutely. So we turn to Minnesota. Kickoff Saturday, 3:30, Big Ten Network from Minnesota. Like I said, Emmett will be on location, tweeting from the press box and covering the game live. Spread currently is the the Gophers by 3.5 points.
I believe it opened at 5.5, so
yes.
Slight movement down.
Yep, it opened at 3.5, 5.5. It's moved down. The over/under shot up a couple points. It's at 46.5 currently. ESPN Power Index gives the Gophers a 61.7% chance to win. Spartans 38.3 for those of you who are not mathematically inclined, which is probably as optimistic as the FPI indicators are going to look maybe for the Spartans this year. I guess maybe if Penn State gets a couple more issues, I don't know. But I can't imagine that number being much higher for MSU throughout the rest of the year unless something changes, but we'll see. So interesting. I forgot if I mentioned the game is on Big Ten Network. Minnesota is going into the game 3-5. The Spartans, as we mentioned, 5-3. Minnesota's going into the
Minnesota's 5-3. They got a winning record.
Yep, Minnesota's going in 5-3, and the Spartans, like we mentioned, are 3-5. Quarterback Drake Lindsay sitting at about 1,550 passing yards for the season. Leading rusher as of right now is Darius Taylor with 354 yards, and then we have Lemeke Brockington for their leading receiver at 339 yards. So that's kind of their offensive go-to guys. Not a whole lot to say. I'm sorry, I know you guys look for some content and some stuff like that. I'm kind of running at a loss for words. On paper, this is a game the Spartans should be able to win. Am I confident in that? Not really. To be perfectly honest with you, I've just, the lack of emotion and the lack of caring the past few weeks is just, I don't know if the team's on give up watch, the coaching staff is not connecting. I don't know what the disconnect is, but something's got to change for them to go in and pull this out. So
I truly have no clue what team you're going to see. And we've said this the last couple of weeks. We don't know what team we're going to see. And yeah, it's just a matter of, you don't know if you're going to see. Honestly, it feels like it's one of those games where you're either going to see MSU find a way to get a win, or you're going to see the final game of the Jonathan Smith era at Michigan State, to be perfectly honest here. Yeah. And we don't know which version we're going to see, because we said last week that you need to come out with your hair on fire, and Rossi had his hair on fire. You could tell it felt like he was the coordinator on the hot seat. Maybe it's a stay of execution, but overall, I don't know what to expect. You're going to need to keep their pass rusher in check. I'm blanking on the name right now. He's leading the Big Ten with 7 sacks. So
Anthony Smith.
Smith, yeah. Look, another Smith. A Smith that can actually rush the passer, unlike our Smith.
Yeah. And like we said, what team are we going to get? I don't know. Even the Nebraska lost team or the USC lost team that showed up in LA, if that team shows up, it could very well get this game pulled out. I mean, it's on paper, Minnesota's not anything eye-popping. If you play the game you played at USC or even at Nebraska, you might win. If you play like you did last week.
Besides the special teams play.
Yeah, besides the special teams play. If you play like you did last week, though, or you play like you did against UCLA, then no, it's just not happening. And you're coming back 3-6, and like Emmett said, you could very well be throwing your program's name in the pool for teams looking for coaches next season, or at the end of this season, I should say.
The question becomes if Smith's Monday presser was his last Monday presser.
Yep.
This is a question you have to ask. We're not trying to overstate or understate the situation. We're just trying to call it how it is, and that is the situation.
And
is that you could genuinely be witnessing last game. We don't know for sure. Obviously, we all have heard the rumors. We've all seen everything about it. I know my comments were flooded after the Michigan game of, why is Smith still coaching, blah, 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 blah. And I know my tweet about, hey, there's still a Monday press conference for Jonathan Smith, as per usual, got a lot of traction on Twitter. So this is just, we can report what we know, but that's all we know.
Yeah. And we don't necessarily, like Emmett was starting to say, we don't necessarily have any inside knowledge. We're just kind of going off what we see and the vibes we're kind of picking up from around the program and around the fan base too. I mean, and you're clearly...
And we see the social media backlash. We see the people calling for his head. But we don't know if one of the donors is moved enough to want to do something and get rid of Smith. Because I'm sure if you have a donor going up to J Bat saying, I'll give you $100 million if that means you get rid of your coach and then start the search for a new one. Yeah, that's $65 million. Well, probably about $50 million after you factor in other assistant buyouts and everything to nuke the program and start from scratch before any other donors. Do I think there's a $100 million donor around the corner? Absolutely not. But is that just how the vibes are around the program? Yes.
Yep. And to be fair, and shout out to David Harns over at Spartans Illustrated for coming up with this a couple of weeks ago. The numbers on the buyout, it's not all at once. He doesn't get all paid. So if MSU does elect to buy him out, it's over the course of, I think, 62 months that the payments get made. So that's, I don't know if that helps or hurts. I don't know if anybody wants to be on the hook for 62 months worth of payments. I don't know if...
And it's worth noting, MSU did go and scale back the renovation project for the Olympic sports, some of the more non-revenue sports. I guess the proper way to call them is non-revenue sports, but it's like your Olympic sports, your gymnastics, etc. They did scale back their the Haller-led plan to have a $200 million arena. I don't know if it's outright canceled or tabled or what the official lingo on it is, but I know that plan is currently wrapped up and not likely to take place. I'm not sure the official resolution of that. But worth noting that they've looked into other athletic budget cuts, which probably is a sign of something. We're not sure, obviously, if that means that Sunday we're gonna see the news and have to record an emergency podcast or not.
Yeah, I think and a lot of people on social media have kind of read into it, and they could be right or wrong, and I don't know. To me, it looks like maybe you're preparing to eventually have to pay for a buyout, whether it's now and it's
or
this
you
amount
could be
of money.
preparing for one big or you could be preparing for one big rush in NIL portal. Who really knows?
Yeah, exactly. It could be just to give Jonathan Smith one more shot at the can next year and give him as much money as you possibly can for the offseason NIL budget. But I don't know. It's just, I guess, something to look out for. And if a donor, like Emmett said, comes forward and wants to pay a buyout, then you may have an opportunity to do so.
You may see windows change in a span of hours instead of days or weeks, like this current situation is taking.
Well, and I will say,
could change in hours.
I will say, I would warn against some of the stuff you're seeing on social media about donors and this and that. You got to be careful with what you're sourcing and what you're not sourcing. Another thing that's kind of the elephant in the room, if you do fire Jonathan Smith now or this season, you join a big list of schools looking for a coach. And yes, there's some prize coaches out there, but you got to beat out a lot of schools to get one of those big names. And is the MSU job attractive enough?
I don't think you can act scared in this coaching market. You have to.
You can't.
You can't just punt the situation. You can't punt the situation because J-Bat said in his introduction press conference, football is basically everything.
Yep.
He's come from the SEC. He came from Georgia Tech, where he was able to put trust in the guys to build a winning program. And you can't act scared and think that Michigan State won't compete, or that's just a whole another can of worms.
Yeah,
that
you can't.
If you're acting scared, then it's going to be I'll be blunt, it's going to be a sorry state for the football program and for the athletic department if you are scared to compete.
Yep, I just would. The reason I was bringing it up is I'm not saying go into this thinking you're going to be able to land James Franklin or Lane Kiffin, if he wants to leave Ole Miss, or whoever your coach of choice is. That may not be the case because there's a lot of other attractive options.
Anybody but Brian Kelly.
Yeah, so
anybody but Brian Kelly.
If we get to that point, we will absolutely get on and talk about our preferred coaches and, do this whole fun roundup like we did the last time when Mel Tucker was fired. But who knows? It's just, we'll wait and see. I also do want to say, just because we're reshuffling athletic budgets does not mean the athletic program and the athletic department is struggling. I know the Detroit Free Press was quick to point out the budget reshuffling, and I believe it was a couple. I don't want to name them because I don't want to be wrong and I can't remember it offhand. I don't know if it was Tony Paul or Tony Garcia or who it was, but there are a few people that pointed out that this could be a sign that the athletic department's broke and that they're in a world of hurt. I would pump the brakes on that a little bit. I just maybe think that you had a previous athletic director that was super invested in putting a lot of money in non-revenue sports, and a current athletic director who is flat out said publicly that football is going to be king, and he might want to reshuffle his funds to pour immediate money into the revenue sports in football and basketball and I guess hockey to a standpoint.
And this is something you would see under an athletic director change, is that you're going to see priorities change around a little. That's just a natural part. And sure, maybe you're not going to see a $200 million plan go to the wayside every day, but it is something that's worth noting that priorities change a little with a new athletic director.
And if Alan Haller was still the athletic director and this was happening, that could be an alarming sign potentially. But again, new athletic director, new shift in priorities, and we'll see what that goes. So I guess we'll get, before we get into the rest, Minnesota score predictions and first time touchdown. I'll let Emmett go first. It's time to switch up the vibes.
Oh boy. Okay, so last week I was pretty close. I want to say I said 20-34, correct?
Yeah,
and it was 20-31. Yeah, so I'll be honest, the vibes are not much better. We're not very hee-hee-hoo-hoo over here. I'm going to say Michigan State 10, Minnesota 27. I'm not feeling confident in the Gopher offense. I'm not feeling confident in the Michigan State offense, but I think MSU will make a couple crucial mistakes or turnovers that's going to lead to some Minnesota touchdowns, and that's going to be wraps, because I have yet to see this team handle adversity besides against a 1-7 Boston College team that's only won against Fordham. A Boston College team that's likely to go 1-11 looking at their schedule. So I have yet to really see this team have a fight against any opponent that is really pulling their weight.
Hey, Western was leading the MAC, just an FYI, at one point here recently.
Okay, well, that's the last time we saw the defense, too. So Caleb Gash was a miracle worker with his big hits on kickoff. That's all I'll say. But yeah, so 10-27, first-time touchdown. Give me Nick Marsh, because I got first pick this week.
I will say give me 24-17 Minnesota. I do think it's going to be closer than Emmett maybe thinks. I just don't have any faith that they're necessarily going to pull out the win. Maybe Alessio Milivojevic comes in and gets another last second close to cover.
We wouldn't cover with that. We would not cover with that.
Close to cover.
You might need to go back to the drawing board.
No, but I was just going to say close to cover. I don't think they're actually going to cover, but he has single-handedly allowed the Spartans to cover the last two games. So maybe that magic comes late. I don't know.
23-24 and we go. You could say 23-24. We go for two and fail because that's all we do when going for two. Besides the Boston College game,
no,
that's an option.
Nope, I'll stick with 24-17, and I'll take. Give me.
Hard to believe in anyone, isn't it?
Give me Michael Masunis.
I knew you were going Masunis.
Yeah, well, give me Michael Masunis. I wanted to switch it up. Zach, of course, would have went Jack Velling, so I didn't want to take Jack Velling. So I don't have a score. I don't have a score prediction from Zach. I know his sentiments kind of echo ours, so I can't imagine his score prediction was going to be much different.
And I'm sure he has a podcast preview up for Michigan. Yes. Check his out.
Yep, and he's been posting his stuff on Michigan too, as he regularly does. So check that out. Before moving into basketball and hockey real quick, I do want to say Western is a game behind in the MAC still. Big week for the Broncos as they take on the hated rivals of Western Michigan, the Central Michigan Chippewas. So it is Western week.
Speaking of Central, we forgave them.
Yeah.
We're not demanding buyout or anything or canceling future games.
Yeah.
That's another. We can talk about that if there's a coaching firing. We can talk about the athletic department recent moves. I think we can table that for.
Yeah, I will say I was going to lead into
I have
the CMU's punishments were released today. If you want to look more into that, you can. Mostly their coaching
a
staff.
lot
From
of
last,
Yay-Ra show causing.
yeah, most of their coaching staff from the sideline era, Jim McElwain and them, they're the ones who got burned. I will
Their
say,
show cause and then suspended for more games than Sharon Moore and Jim Harbaugh got suspended for.
I will say that they did not cancel any games like Emmett said with Central as of yet. That doesn't mean it won't happen, but it doesn't mean it will.
It won't happen.
Doesn't mean it will happen either. But I will say CMU versus Western, go Chips. It is in Kalamazoo. That'll be an interesting game to watch. That's at 4 on Saturday if you get sick of the Spartans.
Go Broncos, baby.
If you get sick of the Spartans and the Gophers, ESPNU will have that battle for the victory cannon. Hopefully it comes back to Mount Pleasant for me.
Go to Kalamazoo.
So I know that's not a popular MSU fan base, but I am a CMU alum, so I gotta stick with the Chips for a little bit. Moving on to basketball, we had our exhibition against UConn the other day. UConn was victorious, 76-69. Close game.
Nice.
Yeah, it was a close game. UConn had taken I believe it was an 11-point lead at the half, and the Spartans attempted to make it close, could not pull out a comeback. Jeremy Fears had 14 points, assists. Carson Cooper had a double-double with 12 and 10. Jackson Kohler also a double-double with 10 points, 12 rebounds. Cohen Carr had 11. Top scorers for UConn were Alex Caravan and Solo Ball with 18. Frustrating. Also, free throw shooting was an issue. It's an exhibition. It's October basketball.
That's the big frustration.
Yeah,
the big frustration. Like it's October basketball. Like I said, going into that game, unless Michigan State lost by like 30 or 35 points, I would not be concerned. I would even accept like a 25-point loss because I think you only have 4 returning players that played major minutes for defense on this Michigan State team last year. So, yeah, sure, they lost and they gave up 75, but I'm not concerned about that because you have a lot of guys who are gelling, getting to grow into their roles. And you saw Trey Fort start to really get into that role. You saw Jordan Scott start to get into the role. So I think that they've proven their worth and they're going to be good impact players, but this is October basketball. You're not playing your normal rotational minutes yet. You're not going to see the normal rotational minutes probably until, I would say, the second part of Big Ten Conference play.
Yeah.
So I'm not pulling the panic lever. I'm not concerned. Honestly, I'm heartened by the fact that it was only a 6-point loss because I was expecting a 15-point drubbing.
Yeah, UConn is the number 4 team in the country going into the preseason. Also credit,
they were out 2 of their starters, yeah.
Yeah, also credit the Spartans too, though. They were down, like I said, 11 at half. In the second half, UConn had pushed it to as much as 19 at one point. The seniors and upperclassmen kind of took charge and helped lead a comeback. It fell short. Not that big of a deal. This is a learning block game, and you'll learn from it and be better off in March from it. So not a big deal. But we did want to fill in the final score quickly for you. Not bad, not a bad showing by any means. Just more things to work on. Hockey did wrap up its last weekend sweep of Northern Michigan up in Marquette. They won Friday, 4-0, and then Saturday 6-2.
6-2. After it was tied 2-2, I want to point out. So that team can rally.
Congrats to Melvin Strahl for his first win. He did not, or Trey did not play on Saturday for rest. Just giving him a game off finally, and Melvin Strahl looked really good. So congrats on him getting his first NCAA win. Spartans are off this weekend, their first bye weekend, I guess, if you want to call it. They are next in action next weekend, welcoming Penn State. And some kid named Gavin McKenna. I don't know if you've heard of him or not, but
the hope is that Matt Eichstadt and I both applied for credentials. The hope is that we'll have at least one person in coverage for both games. Check back. I'm sure we'll tweet it out on the podcast later in the week.
Yeah, and
one or both of us are credentialed for those games.
And we'll break it down before next weekend's festivities, of course, too. on our next week episode. So that's obviously going to be must-see TV. A lot of NHL potential, including, like we said, Gavin McKenna, who will be the number 1 overall pick of the draft next year.
And Martellin and Lindstrom, it's going to be a great game.
Yeah, Penn State is currently sitting in number 6 in the country in this week's polls. I'm not sure they play. Let me look that up real quick. They play. Oh, geez. Darn cookies. Hold on. Let's look at. They play. Wow, I hate Penn State's athletic website. Fun fact.
That's a fun fact. I saw one.
Ice hockey schedule. There we go. My goodness. They are against Ohio State this week? Nope, that was last weekend. Nope, that was this weekend. My bad. They played Ohio State today and won 3-2, and then they play Ohio State tomorrow in Columbus. So yeah, that's it. I mean, Penn State's, like I said, good team, lots of talent, still kind of clicking and trying to get together, I guess, if you wanna say that. But we will see how it fares. If there's any tickets left, I would highly suggest picking one up. They're coming in at least 7-2 if they lose tomorrow, 8-1 if they win. So in good form. Like I said, lots of talent on the roster. So check it out. It's gonna be a fun one. So other than that, I think that's gonna pretty much do it for today. Not a lot to cover, like I said. We got a little ranty and preachy, but it's frustrating times, that's for sure. So we appreciate everybody tuning in, of course. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, let us know on socials and email us. We'll be happy to answer anything we can on the podcast or go over anything you guys need. And then we'll be back next week as planned to break down the Minnesota game and get you geared up for all of next weekend's. Is next week the bye weekend for football, or is it one more?
Yes, it is a bye week for football, but then you have Arkansas coming to town for
that's
basketball.
What it was. Arkansas for basketball next week. So no football, but we will break down Minnesota's football game and then get you all the hockey and basketball news and maybe fill in some non-revenue.
We'll also have the season opener to recap for basketball because that is a Monday night game. Tune in. I believe it's against Colgate.
Yep. So yeah, that'll do it. So we appreciate everybody tuning in. Thanks for watching as always, and go green.
Go white.